He focused immense power into a single fist. The blow sent the self-proclaimed god staggering. It couldn't believe a mere mortal had harmed it. Nearby, his companion sensed the incoming danger. He knew he had to move out of the way. The god's three eyes now blazed with pure rage. It leaped into the air, launching a furious attack. His friend could only scream out a desperate warning. The monster slammed its weapon into the ground. But our hero met the powerful strike with his blade. Hiromu watched the clash with wide, worried eyes. He remembered just how reliable his brother was. The memory brought him back to a much simpler time. His older brother had praised him for his courage. But Hiromu simply felt he was doing his duty. A fist bump sealed their unbreakable bond. They shared a laugh, a rare moment of peace. This peace was shattered 30 years ago when the fallen towers and their gods manifested. Horrific monsters poured out from these strange structures. Humanity's only hope became those chosen by divine artifacts. The heroes. Their goal was to conquer the fallen towers. A hero had to defeat the god on the final floor. Only then could the god's true divinity be restored. Among the three greatest heroes, his brother was the strongest of them all. Because of him, the number of fallen gods decreased. The world was slowly finding its peace again. But Hiromu felt he was just a tag-along, only useful for carrying the supplies. He always wanted to fight alongside his brother. But he heard the whispers from the others. They called him useless, a burden to the team. For someone like him, just keeping up was a struggle. So he decided to witness his brother's greatness. He would help him purge all the fallen gods and restore the world. And so Hiromu watched his brother fight again. He moved like a whirlwind, a blur of motion. His teammates could only stay back and watch. Suddenly, a monster broke through their lines. Hiromu screamed as it lunged at a comrade. The creature slammed into the unsuspecting man. He was thrown to the ground, badly injured. The hero turned, his fight already finished. His companion insisted he was okay, technically. But more monsters meant a great foe was near. But the endless fighting was breaking his comrade's spirit. He started to doubt if their struggle was even winnable. But his brother refused to let despair take hold. He drew his weapon, a flash of brilliant light. He vowed his exorcising blade would end this war. This reminded Hiromu of a promise his brother once made. He had asked him to dream of a peaceful future. Hiromu's wish was simple, a quiet life in the country. As they continued their journey forward, his brother had playfully cried, wanting a grander dream for him. He fondly remembered their journey to this point, but that memory faded as he faced the present. Before them stood their final destination, the tower. His brother took the lead, ordering everyone to follow. Hiromu followed close behind, his gaze resolute. He knew this narrow bridge was a dangerous place, but he had absolute faith his brother would lead them through. At the entrance, the hero turned to his team. He declared it was showtime, but Hiromu felt a sudden chill. With a mighty heave, his brother threw the doors open, but the room inside was completely empty. His comrade questioned the lack of monsters. As Hiromu tried to warn them, his body froze. A dark shadow erupted, trapping them all. Only his brother remained free from the trap. He turned his gaze directly toward Hiromu. He warned him to brace for a powerful move. A sudden force knocked the others to the ground. He then moved to free the final trapped member. His eyes were fixed with cold determination. He pulled his last struggling comrade from the trap. He offered a smile, promising to save him. But his comrade's eyes twisted with a sinister light. The man he had just saved was not himself. Hiromu screamed, realizing the horrifying betrayal. His brother was caught completely by surprise. The traitor struck him with a devastating blow. He then offered a truly twisted proposal. A cursed blade was now lodged deep in the hero's body. Vile energy erupted from the wound, consuming him. Hiromu screamed his brother's name in pure terror. A dark energy completely enveloped the hero's body. His eyes now glowed with a sinister crimson light. He slowly raised his divine blade, aiming it directly at his own brother. An ancient evil had now possessed the great hero. It turned to the traitor, offering to grant his wish. Urabe confessed he just wanted to escape his fear. Hiromu accused him of betraying all of humanity. The other two heroes prepared to fight to save their leader. The possessed hero saw them as a perfect warm-up. With just a simple flick of his wrist, he sent the remaining heroes flying into the air. He looked down on them, calling them mere pests. They were defeated in an instant, utterly helpless. Hiromu could only watch as his friends fell. The traitor then reminded the new god of his reward. Hiromu knew he had to do something, anything. Suddenly, a mysterious blue light began to glow. It seemed to be responding to his desperate will. He saw it then, his brother's exorcising blade. He wondered if this was the key to saving him. A sudden thought sparked in his mind. His brother hadn't tried to attack him at all. But as he reached for the hilt, he faltered. At that moment, the possessed hero turned on the traitor. A dark energy shot out, twisting into a cruel shape. Seeing this betrayal, Hiromu's resolve hardened. His brother was his pride, the hope of everyone. Then, a mysterious voice echoed deep inside his head. The voice vowed it would take his brother back. He unleashed a flurry of impossibly fast attacks. The possessed hero was stunned by this sudden power. Hiromu's body moved on its own, guided by the mysterious entity. This voice explained the fallen god was a parasitic being, feeding on human life force to grow stronger. He had to strike before his brother was completely consumed. But his blade was suddenly blocked by another force. The traitor stepped in, eager to prove his worth. He and the other hero charged at Hiromu together. And then, his former teammate revealed his own monstrous transformation. The god noticed the hero's spirit fighting back, but it quickly crushed that futile resistance. It turned to Yorubi, giving him a new mission: destroy the exorcising blade and the other heroes. All around Hiromu, his comrades lay defeated. He knew if he failed, countless lives would be lost. His brother would destroy everything he once protected. With renewed determination, his eyes began to glow. He unleashed a powerful attack against his foes, but his former friend blocked the strike with ease. The voice within him repeated its strange request. It warned that this opponent was far too strong for him. But it was amazed at how clearly he saw the attacks. It knew his name, telling him defense alone was not enough. It instructed him to charge when it gave the signal. Hiromu placed his complete trust in this unknown entity. Their silent planning was met with the monster's insults. The creature reveled in its new, exhilarating power. It unleashed a massive attack, sure of its own supremacy. In that split second, the voice gave its command, "Now!" He moved like a blur, slipping past the attack. The monster couldn't believe what it was seeing. In an instant, Hiromu was behind him, victorious. The voice inside praised him, calling him a natural. It was impressed by his unwavering steel will. Hiromu looked at his hands, amazed by the power. He finally had the strength to save his brother. But a new wave of monsters stood in his way. He knew he couldn't stop now, not for a second. From the shadows, the true enemy was watching. The voice took a physical form, demanding his all. Hiromu realized this was the spirit from the sword. It was Gayamaru, the god of the exorcising blade. The spirit placed a hand on his shoulder, formally acknowledging him as its new master. A tremendous power surged through Hiromu's veins. He could now fight with unimaginable strength. Together they formed a pact to save his brother. Just then, the remaining monsters charged at them. Hiromu stood his ground, ready to face the onslaught. Gayamaru would only teach him the very basics. It was strange, he had never fought before, yet he could now see every enemy's fatal flaw. He moved in a blur of motion, unleashing a devastating lightning flash attack. His eyes blazed with newfound power and confidence. The traitor could only watch in stunned silence. Even the possessed hero was taken aback by this display. It finally recognized the true threat of the exorcising sword, and now it was determined to destroy it for good. He met his brother's strike with all his might. The god fought with effortless, cruel precision, but in a flash he saw a single fatal opening. He prepared to end the fight with one last move. But the traitor suddenly jumped in front of the blow. He used his own body to shield his new master. Hiromu's eyes widened in disbelief and frustration. His sacred blade was stopped deep within the traitor. His one chance to save his brother had failed. He screamed in rage, demanding his brother be returned. The possessed hero stared down with cold, empty eyes. He then launched a powerful attack to finish him. The god relished this cruel final moment. Hiromu had reached his limit, his borrowed power gone. But Gayamaru offered a final, desperate choice. He had to completely surrender his body to him. As his brother prepared the finishing blow, Hiromu closed his eyes, accepting the terms. Suddenly, he heard a faint, familiar voice. It was his brother, fighting back from within. That flicker of hope was all Hiromu needed. Gayamaru told him to strike now, the only way to separate them. But the god mocked his brother's futile resistance. It claimed the hero's body as its own. Monsters now swarmed the entire throne room. The traitorous Urabe declared that it was too late. But Hiromu charged forward, refusing to accept defeat. He plunged the sword deep into his brother's chest. A massive wave of purifying energy then exploded outwards, consuming the monsters and traitors in its brilliant blue light. When the light faded, a new hero had arrived on the scene. Hiromu looked up, relieved to see such a powerful ally. His possessed brother was still standing, but clearly weakened. It spread its dark wings, preparing to make a quick escape. With a final taunt, it fled through a high window. Asanome immediately ordered his troops to pursue the target. Hiromu tried to explain what had happened to his brother, but Gayamaru's power let him hear the soldiers' whispers. They believed his brother was a lost cause. Their conclusion was grim. The possessed must be eliminated. Asanomi calmly asked for the report, but Hiromu now knew the truth. As Hiromu turned to leave, a cold voice stopped him. Asanome demanded the sword, deeming him unworthy to wield it. A sudden resolve hardened Hiromu's expression. He could never hand over this sacred blade. He knew the organization would just eliminate his brother. With a quick apology, he made a desperate run for it, but Asanomi coldly dismissed his impossible dream. Hiromu insisted there was still a chance to save him. The hero replied that no one possessed had ever returned. But just then, new allies arrived on the scene. With his new allies covering him, Hiromu dashed for the exit. If they wouldn't listen to reason, then he had to escape. But the number 2 hero, Asanome, stood in his way. Gayamaru told him to just charge, not to use a special move. One of his allies ignored that, unleashing a powerful lightning slash. Asanome was surprised, but simply faded out of the attack's path. He reappeared instantly, moving with blinding speed. Hiromu felt a sudden sharp pain as he was struck. A powerful kick sent him flying to the ground. Dazed, he looked up to see a familiar yet terrifying figure. Hiromu lay on the ground, completely unconscious. Asanomi stood over him, ready to retrieve the sword, but he paused, his gaze fixed on the blade. He called out to the wild god dwelling within. Suddenly, the powerful spirit Gayamaru appeared. Asanomi smirked, confirming the ancient legends. He was bitter that the god had chosen Shotaro, but never him. He knew the world desperately needed a new hero. Without one, all of humanity's hope would be lost. So he offered a deal. Help him save Shotaro and he would fill the empty role. He looked down at the fallen Hiromu, deep in thought. He was surprised by the boy's incredible hidden power. To draw that much strength from the sacred blade, Asanomi admitted that Hiromu had great potential. The scene then shifted to a distant, peaceful memory. His brother had burst in, filled with exciting news. A young Hiromu had praised him, filled with admiration. Shotaro had then made a solemn promise to his little brother. He would create a peaceful world just for him. Back in the present, Hiromu's eyes slowly began to open. As he slowly regained consciousness, a terrifying nightmare flooded his mind. A single crimson eye glared with pure evil. The vision showed the monster looming over his younger self. It declared that his brother's body now belonged to it. Hiromu woke with a start, the horror still fresh. He remembered the terrible truth of that day. It was all because he had been too weak. He was powerless to stop his brother from being taken. The crushing weight of his failure consumed him. But Gayamaru's voice cut through his despair. The god sternly commanded him to get up. Hiromu's eyes shot open, his mind back in reality. He jolted awake, sitting up in a strange bed. He was greeted by his concerned friend, Mikoto. She explained that he was in the organization's medical room. Apparently, Asanomi had carried him all the way back, and to his shock, he'd been unconscious for 2 whole days. He grabbed his friend, desperately asking about the sword. The association was already testing new candidates to wield it. His friend explained that only a true master can draw out an artifact's full potential. Hiromu insisted he could wield the sword's power, but the chairman clearly didn't believe him. That's why they had already begun the candidate tests. Makoto warned him that gods are often fickle beings. But Hiromu shouted back, defending Gayamaru's honor. His hands clenched the sheets in frustration. His friend tried to reason with him about their duty, but Hiromu was trapped, his heart in conflict. Suddenly, he leaped out of the bed, startling Makoto. He ran, knowing if someone else took the sword, his brother was doomed. He had to become the sword's master to save his brother. As he ran through the halls, a voice stopped him. It was a prodigy swordsman, Maeda Reiji. Reiji challenged the former baggage carrier with a smirk. But before Hiromu could even answer the challenge, a sudden punch sent him crashing to the floor. Reiji was furious that such a weakling was chosen. The sword held the spirit of a legendary samurai god, humanity's greatest protector. He couldn't stand that trash was chosen to wield it. He shouted that Hiromu could never defeat a great hero. Suddenly, his brother's girlfriend rushed in to stop the fight. But Reiji insisted he was just stating the obvious facts. The exorcism. Swords masters were always special-class heroes. Only those with the highest potential were ever chosen, and Hiromu was just an unranked non-combatant. Reiji declared that he would master the sword and defeat Shotaro, but Hiromu refused to let anyone finish off his brother. Miki delivered the harsh truth. The organization wanted him eliminated. She had even applied to be the one to do it herself. Hiromu realized he and Gayamaru were truly alone in this fight. He boldly declared that he was the sword's rightful master. But a calm voice suddenly interrupted the argument. It was Asanomi, ordering him to the training grounds. A nervous Hiromu had no choice but to accept. Asanomi looked on with a strange, unreadable expression. He told the other two to watch Hiromu's test first. They arrived at the training ground to find utter chaos. Two massive monsters were overwhelming the other heroes. The organization's head watched grimly, seeing the massive void Shotaro had left. His eyes then landed on Asanome and the young boy beside him. The organization's head then called out his name. The test was simple: defeat the monsters and claim the sword. Asanome handed him the blade, offering a cold warning. He held the sheath with a firm, unyielding grip. Hiromu accepted the sword, his resolve now absolute. Inside his mind, Gayamaru greeted his new master cheerfully. But his tone quickly turned deadly serious. He warned him not to hold back against the ruthless chairman. The chairman noticed something different about the boy. With a sharp command, the monsters were released. The two hulking beasts charged straight for him. This was his one chance to prove his true worth. His friends watched in horror, knowing how strong these monsters were. But Hiromu calmly told Gayamaru that he could handle them. With a flash of his red eyes, he saw his path. He instantly perceived the creature's hidden weakness. It was like looking at a perfect X-ray of his opponent. He dashed forward, moving faster than the eye could see. To him, their openings were glaringly obvious. Gayamaru watched with a proud, confident smirk. Following Gayamaru's command, he charged upwards. He unleashed a new, devastating sword technique. A powerful rising thunder flash. Mickey was stunned. His movements were just like Shotaro's. The first monster fell in a massive explosion. Hiromu then turned to face the final creature. Mickey watched, her expression a mix of awe and disbelief. But just as he moved to strike, an explosion rocked the arena. Reiji had jumped in, easily defeating the last monster himself. The other candidates cheered wildly for their prodigy hero. Hiromu was confused by Reiji's sudden interference. The prodigy was determined to prove himself the worthier master. From above, the chairman was quite pleased with the results. He now had to decide how to guide these two young heroes. Two new bundles of hope had finally emerged. Reiji had been a prodigy since he was 10 years old. He quickly rose through the ranks, praised by everyone, but his divine artifact was holding him back. It was too slow, unable to keep up with his movements. With a regular artifact, he couldn't even fight seriously. His eyes were locked on the exercising sword. He knew that with its power, he could fight even better. He could finally become a hero who surpassed Shotaro. Sometime later, a decision was finally reached. The candidates were all gathered in a silent meeting room. The chairman entered, ready to announce their conclusion. They had discussed at length who would wield the blade. After much debate, they had made their choice. Considering his ability and results, Reiji was the best fit. As Reiji accepted, Hiromu's world shattered. But the chairman had one final additional test. Reiji had to prove himself at a nearby fallen tower. Asanome would accompany him as the official evaluator. And in a surprise twist, Hiromu was also ordered to go. The chairman gave him a cryptic piece of advice. Soon, the trio arrived at their dangerous destination. The size of the tower indicated a powerful fallen god. Reiji was eager to prove he was worthy of the sacred blade. Before they left, Mickey gave Hiromu a sword for protection. She had only come to witness who the blade would choose. Hiromu followed close behind, feeling a knot of nerves. They stepped into the tower, their footsteps echoing. Reiji was supremely confident, ready to prove his worth. Hiromu knew that even he became strong with the sword. A pair of demonic monsters suddenly leaped out to attack. Reiji met their charge with a blinding flash of light. He easily dispatched them, demanding a stronger challenge. Watching this, Hiromu realized the cost of that power. Mickey turned to him, asking if he was afraid of that life. But he was prepared, his resolve to save his brother unwavering. Reiji continued to fight with precise, efficient movements. Asanome and Hiromu watched from a safe distance. Suddenly, Gayamaru appeared, complaining about the boring prodigy. He explained that Reiji was talented but not communicating. He was just brute-forcing his power, unable to truly connect. Hiromu was shocked that the sword's power was so immense. Asanome admitted that Reiji was a bundle of raw talent. Hearing this, Hiromu knew what he had to do next. The team finally reached the top of the tower. The great fallen god was waiting for them there. Reiji shot back, blaming the god for its own fate. The god just chuckled, happy with its new, monstrous form. It explained that as a regular god, it was lonely and forgotten. It had simply been waiting to decay into nothingness. But a strange new power had flowed in, changing everything. Reiji lost his patience, telling the god to stop being selfish. He charged in, but his attack was easily deflected. The god called him an impatient child, mocking his failed attempt. But since they came all this way, it would give them a real fight. A sudden, thick fog then rolled in, obscuring their vision. In the fog, Mickey looked horrified, as if seeing a ghost. Hiromu's eyes widened in shock at what he saw. A ghostly image of his possessed brother appeared in the mist. The god was using the fog to create horrifying illusions. It was twisting their perceptions, making them see what it wanted. They now saw Hiromu as an incredibly powerful demonic figure. The illusion prepared to unleash a devastating attack. A lightning bloom tempest formed, swirling with dark energy. They all recognized it as Shotaro's signature move. Reiji had to fight the illusion, knowing it wasn't real. But the demonic illusion of Hiromu was unimpressed. Enraged, Reiji charged in to prove his strength. His mind flashed back to the real Shotaro's power. He had the overwhelming strength to subdue any foe. That man was the only one Reiji truly admired and feared. He had always wondered if he could ever win against him. The thought filled him with a deep, paralyzing fear. His hesitation created a fatal opening in his defense. The illusion's sword bit deep into the ground near him. He was sent flying back, screaming in pain and terror. The illusion of Hiromu stood over him, calling him weak. They were locked in a fierce struggle for the blade. The illusion taunted him, asking if he'd finally admit defeat. Reiji tried to blame his failure on his own artifact, but the illusion just smirked, knowing the truth of his fear. Reiji's power completely failed him in that crucial moment. He was disarmed, the exorcising sword flying from his grasp. He fell to his knees, utterly defeated by the illusion. The fake Hiromu then picked up the legendary blade. Reiji could only watch in a state of pure, terrified shock. Stepping out of the fog, the real Hiromu emerged. He was no longer bound by the god's illusion. He unleashed his own lightning bloom tempest. He calmly declared that he was the true opponent. Gayamaru was pleased, seeing his master's new courage. Reiji was stunned, asking if he wasn't afraid. Hiromu had seen his brother's true strength up close, and that was precisely why he knew he had to be the one to fight him. He steeled his resolve. This monster was not his brother. He remembered the day his brother had changed forever, and he knew he could never lose to this fake. He charged forward, his will stronger than ever before. The possessed hero met his attack with a sneer, but Hiromu had studied his brother's fighting style. He knew his real brother's attacks weren't so straightforward. He had seen his brother's true power up close, and it was certainly not this slow and clumsy. The god mocked him, calling him all talk. But it was about to unleash a truly devastating technique. His brother wouldn't use such a foolishly obvious attack. The god was stunned. Its perfect illusion shattered. From the sidelines, Miki prepared to join the fight. She wouldn't be intimidated by this cheap imitation. Gayamaru was proud, telling him to go all out now. Hiromu focused all his power into the sacred blade. He unleashed the ultimate technique, Lightning Breaker. The attack completely overwhelmed the possessed hero. It sent him staggering back, his power fading. The god within gritted its teeth in pure fury. But Reiji was furious, accusing him of stealing his glory. Hiromu just stared, his mind still reeling from the fight. Asanome stepped in, telling Reiji to admit his defeat. This victory belonged to Hiromu and Hiromu alone. Miki then stepped forward, her mind finally made up. His resolve reminded her so much of Shotaro's. From now on, she would be his loyal supporter. Hiromu was stunned, but grateful for the new ally. They sealed their new pact with a firm handshake. But Gayamaru reminded him this was just the beginning. Hiromu knew this was far from over. Nothing had changed. It was still just him and Gayamaru. Back at headquarters, a full report was being delivered. The exorcising blade now recognized only Hiromu. The chairman accepted this outcome without objection, but Asanome questioned his seemingly contradictory plan. The chairman simply wanted to create a healthy rivalry. He then entrusted Asanome with training the two young heroes. Hiromu accepted his new role but knew he was still weak, and so his grueling training to become stronger began. But the training was far tougher than he ever imagined, and Reiji's constant taunts didn't make it any easier. The prodigy was always one step ahead, effortlessly superior. Reiji criticized his weak power and lack of stamina, but their instructor, Asanome, quickly put them both in line. The training continued late into the night, every single day. He practiced his footwork, again and again. Gayamaru noticed his mind was distracted and unfocused. It was Reiji's endless competitive taunting, but Gayamaru told him to accept it, for the sake of his growth. Hiromu complained, wanting to train alone, but Gayamaru told him to be grateful for the rivalry. He was surprised by the god's sudden wisdom. He realized he knew almost nothing about Gayamaru, but he decided to focus on getting stronger first. 3 days later, their training continued as usual. Reiji stopped him, announcing it was time for field training. Hiromu tried to refuse, but his rival wouldn't listen. He parried the sudden attack with his training stick. Reiji shouted that the enemy wouldn't wait for him to be ready. Hiromu finally snapped, tired of the constant bullying. Reiji confessed his true feelings of admiration and rivalry. But his loss to Hiromu had shattered his pride, so he unleashed a furious flurry of attacks. Hiromu fell to his knees but found a new resolve. To rescue his brother from the darkness, he had to become even stronger than him. In a flash, he saw a single perfect opening. A brilliant line of light separated the two rivals. And just like that, Hiromu had landed a clean hit. He offered a hand, apologizing for not holding back. Reiji just laughed, finding the situation ironic. In front of a real fallen god, he'd been completely useless. Hiromu listened silently, his expression unreadable. Reiji admitted he'd been making excuses for his own weakness. He had hoped the sword would bring him closer to his idol, but he vowed to stop running and finally become stronger. Hiromu then made his own solemn vow to protect everyone. Reiji accepted his hand, vowing he wouldn't lose next time. Just then, Asanome appeared with urgent, game-changing news. Hiromu was filled with a new sense of hope and determination. Suddenly, a strange new hero appeared, mocking him. He looked down on Hiromu, unimpressed by the new master. This was Honda Jin, the third of the great heroes. Asanome confirmed that Hiromu was the recognized master. The three of them would now form a team to face Shotaro. Hiromu listened to the plan with a grim, determined expression. They immediately set off, racing towards Shotaro's location. The car ride was silent, each of them lost in their own thoughts. Asanome worried that they might already be too late. Miki squeezed his arm, her anxiety growing. Honda Jin then asked a brutally direct question. Even Asanome disapproved of his naive way of thinking. The possessed Shotaro was simply too dangerous to be left alive. If they failed, the entire world could be at risk. Asanome then revealed the true reason he had brought him along. It was to keep an eye on him, to ensure he wouldn't interfere. Honda offered a cruel alternative. Buy them time and he'd finish the job. But Hiromu held on to Gayamaru's words, a single thread of hope. His hands clenched, his resolve hardening with every passing second. But Hiromu stood firm, vowing to bring his brother back. Asanome then asked a chilling, ominous question. He stared ahead with a cold, unfeeling gaze. Hiromu was confused, not understanding the sudden change. Even Honda Jin was shocked by what he saw. They had arrived to find the city in complete ruins. The battle had already come and gone, leaving only destruction. A once protected city was now a smoldering wasteland. Miki knew that time was running out for Shotaro. The team split up, ready to face the remaining threats. Asanome left Miki behind as the three heroes split up. She watched them go, her resolve hardening. She too wanted the power to stop the man she loved. Elsewhere, Hiromu was facing a horde of demonic creatures. Gayamaru was at his side, ready to end this quickly. He drew the exorcising blade, its power flaring to life. A brilliant lightning flash cut through the demonic horde. From a distance, Honda Jin watched with a dismissive smirk. He then drew his own weapon, ready to show off his power. He charged up a massive arrow of crackling energy. He fired the arrow, unleashing a brilliant firework of destruction. The arrows rained down from the sky like a meteor shower. This was his ultimate technique, the crowning shot. Meanwhile, Asanome was unimpressed with Hiromu's wasteful movements. He then unleashed his own blazing lightning technique. After the fighting, Hiromu surveyed the quiet, empty streets. He found a family hiding in the rubble, terrified but safe. They were overjoyed, relieved that help had finally arrived. But their relief was short-lived as a new monster appeared. Hiromu's eyes glowed red, ready for the next fight. This new monster's aura felt completely different. It moved with blinding speed, its attacks swift and deadly. This was a boss monster, in control of the others. But a creature this strong should never have left the tower. Gayamaru warned him to fight with his own unique style. A sharp claw swiped at him, narrowly missing. He knew he was weaker, but that could be an advantage. His eyes focused, his perception slowing down time. He carefully watched its movements, waiting for an opening. The second it appeared, he charged in for the kill. He unleashed a perfectly timed lightning flash. The monster was completely obliterated in an instant. He then sheathed his sword, his mission accomplished. But the rescued civilians were confused and terrified. They couldn't understand why a great hero had attacked them. He had offered to help anyone who followed the fallen god. Those who obeyed were taken away to an unknown location. The civilians had lost all hope in their supposed protectors. Gayamaru explained that the god was simply gathering believers. More followers meant more power for the fallen deity. But Hiromu had only one question on his mind. Gayamaru delivered the grim news. They only had 1 month left. Hiromu took a deep breath, his mind now clear. Gayamaru's reptilian eyes watched him with a strange intensity. He was grateful for the truth, his resolve now unshakable. This reminded Gayamaru of his original master, Shotaro. He smiled, a rare expression of genuine pride. It was time to fight with everything they had. From the car, Honda Jin impatiently urged him on. Hiromu apologized, quickly jumping into the vehicle. Honda-jin grabbed him, angry at the slight delay. But Hiromu stood his ground, his resolve unshaken. The third hero just smirked, impressed by his determination. Reiji then appeared, telling Hiromu to get in the car. But as he did, he noticed Miki's terrified expression. She had just received word of another attack. With a new target, Hiromu urged them to hurry. This new town held a special significance. It was Riko's hometown, a place dear to Asanome. Meanwhile, the possessed Shotaro was already at the city gates. He then turned to the monsters, granting them new power. He commanded them to gather their underlings for the attack. The monsters bowed, their bodies twisting with dark energy. The city's barrier shattered, letting the horde pour in. The fallen god then made a grand, terrifying announcement. He offered them a place in his new land of peace. The world watched as the horrifying broadcast played out. In an orphanage, a young girl watched in fear. Meanwhile, the heroes were finally approaching the city. Honda-jin shouted for Asanome to get in the car. Asanome decided to go on ahead. His daughter was in danger. He prepared to use a special foot technique. A brilliant kadaten propelled him forward with incredible speed. Honda-jin could only watch in stunned, wide-eyed disbelief. Asanome's divine artifact held the powerful ogre god, Shutendoji. This god's power allowed him to travel at supersonic speeds. Left behind, Honda-jin urged the driver to get moving. He grumbled about Asanome's reckless, independent nature. Hiromu was shocked to learn he had a daughter. Even the usually stoic Honda was completely flabbergasted. Miki quickly corrected them, gripping the steering wheel. He had actually adopted his late sister's child. Even a hardened hero had a soft spot for his family. Hiromu could only hope the young girl was safe. Asanome raced across the city, pushing himself to the limit. His divine partner knew this was to be expected. His only thought was to get Riko to safety. His mind flashed back to 2 years ago, a happier time. He had worried about them, about what would happen to Riko. But their daughter's love had always been their greatest strength. His sister had smiled, confident in their shared dream. They fought for a peaceful world where Riko could live happily, but that dream was shattered in a single tragic day. He had been away on another mission, completely unaware. He then took in the orphaned Riko, his only living relative. He had no idea how to act around the young girl, but she quickly grew attached, her smile a ray of light. Looking at the burning city, he knew he couldn't lose her. He called on his divine partner, ready to unleash his full power. All he could do now was fight with everything he had. He fought to create a world where Riko could live without a care. He unleashed a devastating flame thunder technique. But his attack was stopped by a familiar, unwelcome voice. He landed, shocked to see a face from the past. It was Urabi, now transformed into a spider-like monster. Asanome couldn't believe it. He was sure he had finished him. The traitor commanded his new army of spiders to attack. Asanome's eyes narrowed, his patience wearing thin. He and Shutendoji easily dispatched the weak creatures. But Urabi was confused. His newfound power was still not enough. He knew he couldn't beat him, but there had to be a weakness. From the shadows, a pair of red eyes watched with keen interest. Asanome raced towards the evacuation shelter, his heart pounding. He arrived to find the civilians terrified but unharmed. They were overjoyed, believing they had finally been saved. But then, a familiar voice called out his name. Asanome's face softened, a rare, genuine smile. But in that moment, the traitor Urabi struck. The civilians screamed as the monster grabbed the child. Asanome could only watch, his partner screaming in rage. Urabe gloated, enjoying the hero's despair. He knew Asanome was a threat that had to be eliminated. He threatened the girl, ordering the hero not to move. With a cruel laugh, he leaped into the air. Asanome was silent, his mind racing for a solution. His eyes flashed with a cold, calculated fury. But when he looked up, the monster had already been stopped. Urabe couldn't believe his eyes. His attack was foiled. From a nearby rooftop, Honda-jin took aim with his bow. This was his own divine artifact, the bow of Yoichi. He had been using the bow's power to coordinate their attack. His plan was simple: save the hostage, no matter the cost. And at that moment, Hiromu made his move. He charged in, determined to take the hostage back. The monster had made a fatal, critical mistake. In a flash, he had the girl, calling out to Asanome. The hero's eyes blazed with a cold, righteous fury. He told his comrade to leave the rest to him. Now that the hostage was safe, he could go all out. He activated his divine artifact, ready to end this. The spider monster just smiled, confident in its power. But Asanome moved like a blur, a whirlwind of destruction. He didn't even need a special technique to finish him. Hiromu could barely track his impossibly fast movements. He then noticed strange needles sticking out of the child's bandages. Urabe had one last trick, a final desperate trap. Hiromu's eyes widened in horror as the trap sprung. Asanome rushed over, concerned for their safety. but the young hero was already struggling to breathe. The needles were coated in a fast-acting poison. Asanomi's attack had left nothing but puddles of goo, but Urabe just laughed, his plan working perfectly. Even without the hostage, his poison was still a threat, and his body could now multiply, creating endless clones. Asanomi realized he was turning his clones into vassals. He had been granted even more power by the fallen god. Gayamaru explained that vassals could only be defeated by striking the core of their soul. Seeing the impossible odds, Asanome told Hiromu to run, but Hiromu refused, wanting to stay and fight. Asanomi reminded him his only job was to protect the child. He gritted his teeth, his face a mask of determination. With the child in his arms, he ran from the swarming monsters. Asanomi could kill the main body, but the horde was endless. The monster mocked him, knowing he was searching for its core. It could move its core at will, making it impossible to find. It then turned its attention to Hiromu's escape. Urabe smiled, a cruel, twisted expression on his face. He vowed to send the boy and the child to join him. Asanomi was surrounded, the spider horde closing in, but Hiromu refused to leave him behind to die. Gayamaru warned him to get away as fast as he could. Asanomi called on his partner, needing the azure flames. Shutendoji eagerly agreed, ready to unleash his power. There was no need to search for the core in this endless horde. He just had to annihilate everything in his path. He prepared to unleash a devastating annihilation technique. An azure nether flame of Iditan consumed the entire battlefield. His partner, Shuten, was an ogre god of demonic flames. But this immense power was a dangerous double-edged sword. When the flames died down, not a single enemy remained. He warned the traitor that the flames would not extinguish. Urabe would now pay the ultimate price for his betrayal. With the battle won, Shuten urged him to find Riko. His partner could sense them both in the distance. They arrived to a scene of utter devastation. A lone silhouette stood amidst the rubble. It was Hiromu, with Riko safe in his arms. The young girl ran to her uncle, overjoyed to see him. He held her tight, apologizing for the terrifying ordeal, but she just smiled, happy that he was finally safe. Hiromu explained how Gayamaru had guided them to safety. Asanomi thanked him, but his relief was cut short. The poison finally took its toll, and Hiromu collapsed. Riko cried out, terrified for her new hero and her uncle. She rushed to his side, asking if he was okay. Asanomi was moved. He had a heart as strong as his brother's. But Miki knew this was no ordinary poison. All she could do was slow its deadly progression. They now had a new, desperate destination in mind. They would seek the protection of the great lady Amaterasu. Riko was confused, unsure who this new person was. She was the pinnacle of the gods, the giver of sacred treasures. Their journey led them to the legendary Isi Grand Shrine. They stood before the sacred building, a sense of awe in the air. A powerful, ancient presence could be felt from within. The new master of Gayamaru had finally arrived. The goddess found this new development very amusing. The team's car pulled up to the entrance of the shrine. Asanomi carried the still-poisoned Hiromu on his back. They were greeted by a rooster, the voice of the great goddess. The rooster spoke, its voice echoing with divine power. She saw the boy as a new hope for the world. Sometime later, Hiromu's eyes fluttered open. Riko was overjoyed, playfully calling him an idiot. He was confused, finding himself in a strange new room. Reiji explained that he was at the Ise Grand Shrine. Miraculously, he felt better than ever, the poison gone. Riko then rushed forward, introducing herself properly. She thanked him for saving her, calling him Hiro-chan. But their reunion was cut short by a familiar voice. Honda Jin announced that the goddess was waiting for them. They made their way through the sacred grounds of the shrine. Gayamaru was unimpressed, calling her a cantankerous old hag. But Amaterasu was the one who created the divine artifacts. He saw her as just another god, using humans for her own ends. He found the entire situation incredibly condescending. Honda explained that the gods needed humanity's help. The great doors to the Hall of Divinity swung open. And there she was, the great goddess Amaterasu Omakami. She was holding Asanomi's sword, currently under repair. The two gods exchanged some playful, friendly insults. Hiromu was shocked. He thought only the wielder could see the god. Even the other divine artifacts made an appearance. He was amazed to see them all gathered in one place. But his attention was suddenly drawn to a small, cute kitten. Riko was also mesmerized by the adorable little creature. After a short wait, the goddess stepped down from her throne. Asanomi's sword was now fully repaired and ready for battle. She then turned her attention to the young Hiromu. She asked him to state his name, though she already knew it well. He stated his name, his voice steady and clear. The goddess's eyes softened with a hint of sympathy. She then bowed her head, offering her sincerest apologies, not only for his brother, but for dragging him into this fight. She explained the true nature of the fallen towers. That was why they had to rely on strong humans to fight for them. She then shot a pointed look at the wild god, Gayamaru. The goddess closed her eyes, her expression turning grim. The evil god Futsunushi had been a threat for centuries. In fact, he was the original cause of all this chaos. He had begun opening holes 30 years ago. Now, with Shotaro's body, he would become unstoppable. If he won, the age of man would end forever. She then turned to Hiromu, challenging him to a test. He eagerly accepted, ready to prove his worth. She summoned a horde of specially made hitogata. He called on Gayamaru, ready to go all out. A brilliant lightning flash cut through the paper soldiers, but one of them dodged, slipping past his attack. He smirked, ready to unleash a new sword technique. He sheathed his sword, preparing for the final blow. A massive lightning bloom tempest erupted from his blade. The other heroes were stunned by his incredible growth. Reiji was in awe, his own desire for power now ignited. The goddess was impressed, calling his performance magnificent. Hiromu could only bow his head, grateful for the praise. She then addressed the heroes, promising the gods full support. Their mission was clear: defeat Futsunushi and restore peace. Hiromu swore an oath to save his brother, no matter what. With their new mission, the team departed from the sacred shrine. A young boy suddenly stumbled, his leg injured. A mysterious man appeared, offering a helping hand. He led the unsuspecting family deep into the woods. The goddess's barrier was useless against a human traitor. He planned to defile a sacred artifact with the fallen god's blood. The dark energy twisted and corrupted the ancient item. He knew his master would be very pleased with this gift. Back at the shrine, the goddess was rallying her forces. The heroes were ready, their mission clear and urgent, and Hiromu renewed his vow, his resolve now unbreakable. But a dark energy suddenly filled the sacred hall. A fallen god had appeared inside the Ice Grand Shrine. If they didn't act fast, the miasma would corrupt them all. Reiji charged forward, eager to prove his worth. This was his chance to get a new, more powerful artifact. Mickey followed close behind, ready to provide support. The heroes split up, each taking on a different task. Honda saw this as a perfect opportunity for Hiromu. He would finally teach him how to use his power. They ran towards their target, ready for a real-world lesson. The shrine's lesser gods were already being corrupted. Hiromu suggested splitting up to cover more ground, but Honda was confident he could handle it. He would synchronize with his divine partner, Yoichi. He warned Hiromu not to blink, this would be quick. Yoichi teased him, surprised to see him teaching another. Synchronization was a complete merging of god and master. He unleashed a supreme bow technique, the divine bird. A brilliant phoenix of light soared through the sky. It rained down holy energy, purifying the corrupted gods. Honda left the rest to him, confident in his abilities. He drew the exercising blade, ready for his first lesson. Gayamaru was a veteran samurai, a master of the sword. Just copying his movements would be enough to skyrocket his power. He focused, his body a blur of motion. He unleashed another lightning flash, this one far more powerful. But their fight had drawn the attention of the real enemy. A horde of demons now stood between them and the fallen god. He prepared to strike, but his vision suddenly blurred. He was seeing fragments of Gayamaru's past, a confusing jumble of memories. A voice in his head screamed, giving the final command. The shrine was now surrounded by countless demons. Time seemed to slow down, the world turning black and white. He unleashed a new devastating roaring lightning flash. The attack wiped out the entire horde in a single blow. He told Gayamaru that he had seen a glimpse of his past. The god explained that this was a side effect of deep synchronization. He then teased him, knowing all his embarrassing secrets. Honda was concerned, noticing his sudden strange behavior. He was shocked to learn this was his first time synchronizing. He knew he had to get stronger on his own, but Honda was suspicious. The god was hiding something. Elsewhere, Reiji and Mickey were fighting their own battle. The shrine was crawling with hordes of demonic creatures. Mickey unleashed a graceful crescent moon sword technique. She cut through the demons with effortless precision. Reiji was getting impatient, worried Hiromu would steal the glory. He was determined to prove himself without his artifact's help. Mickey told him to borrow his divine instrument's power. She warned him that as he was, he couldn't even beat her. A monstrous wolf-like creature suddenly appeared before them. With no other choice, Reiji called on his divine partner. A shower of golden sparks erupted from his hand, and in a flash, the adorable cat god appeared. Reiji was embarrassed, finding the whole thing incredibly uncool. He warned Mickey to put up a barrier for her own safety. With his partner's power, he could no longer hold back. His entire aura changed, crackling with immense energy. He unleashed a devastating wild dance of peerless blades. Mickey could only watch, stunned by his incredible true power. When the flames died down, he stood victorious. This was the true power of a genius with a divine instrument. The room was now filled with the smoke of defeated monsters. Mickey was concerned, but he seemed to be okay. She then noticed a hidden staircase leading downwards. Reiji just smiled, a wild, animalistic grin on his face. He then leaped down the stairs, eager for the next fight. Mickey was shocked by his wild, untamed nature. He found himself face to face with a new, powerful enemy. Without a second thought, he charged in for the attack. He was playing with his food, enjoying the fight. Mickey shouted at him, telling him to finish it quickly. But Reiji's eyes were glowing with a feral blue light. She noticed something was wrong. His aura had changed. His divine partner fought by merging with its master's spirit, and Reiji had a 100% aptitude for synchronization. This perfect fusion created an unstoppable fighting force, but if he held it for too long, he would lose himself. He remembered a time he had lost control once before. That was why he always tried to keep his distance. Enraged, he charged in, ready to finish this fight. He parried the creature's attack with a flash of his blade, but the monster was too fast, its movements unpredictable. He was thrown to the ground, the synchronization broken. His eyes widened, a sinister smile creeping across his face. The cat god's wild nature was starting to take over. Meanwhile, the other heroes had finished their own battle. They were impressed by the sheer number of defeated enemies, but a powerful barrier now blocked their path forward. Honda prepared to open a hole, leaving the rest to Hiromu. Hiromu accepted the challenge, his confidence unwavering. Gayamaru was at his side, ready to lend his full support. Honda prepared to unleash a supreme bow technique. His eyes narrowed, focusing all his power into a single shot. The Tesseract arrow shattered the barrier in a brilliant explosion. Hiromu and Reiji leaped through the opening. They both prepared to unleash their own fierce techniques. This was their one and only chance to strike. A Thunderhammer Slash and a Rising Dragon Claw, two powerful attacks aimed at a single unsuspecting target. But Reiji's attack veered off, aimed at Hiromu instead. The dark energy swirled, a chaotic vortex of power. Hiromu had to shout, telling him to stop. The fight was over. When the dust settled, Reiji was on his knees, exhausted. Hiromu praised him, amazed by their perfect synchronization. From a distance, Honda was impressed but also suspicious. He had a feeling Reiji's attack wasn't a complete accident. Mickey just smiled, a new sense of hope in her heart. The two rivals were both growing stronger and fast. Reiji looked on, a new fire of determination in his eyes. He knew if he kept using Baji, he might lose control. Far away, the mysterious man watched the battle unfold. He was impressed by the insane power of the three greats. Their simultaneous attacks were simply on another level. He decided to lay low and gather more intel for now. After the battle, Honda greeted his fellow hero. Their mission to subjugate the fallen god was complete. Exhausted, he playfully ordered Hiromu to get him a latte, but Asanomi quickly stepped in, defending the young hero. Honda just smiled, wanting to talk to him alone. He acknowledged Hiromu's potential, but there was a problem. His synchronization with Gayamaru was still too shallow. He suspected the cause was the war god himself. Shuten agreed, calling all samurai clumsy creatures. He knew it would take more time for them to truly connect. Back at headquarters, the situation was growing dire. Many civilians were still missing after the recent attacks. They were stretched thin, unable to both fight and investigate. The chairman made a bold decision, establishing a new squad. He left the selection of members to the third great hero. Takeda Mayu eagerly accepted the important mission. With the new task force formed, the team returned to headquarters. Riko said her goodbyes, her voice filled with worry. Asanomi promised they would be back for her soon. She reluctantly accepted, her eyes still filled with concern. But the goddess herself vowed to protect the young girl. She strengthened the shrine's barrier, making it impenetrable. With Riko safe, they could now focus on their true mission. Hiromu and the others swore to succeed without fail. Riko watched them go, her heart filled with a mix of fear and hope. The goddess knew the key to victory lay with Hiromu. She had already granted divine tools to his closest allies. The seeds of hope had been sown, and now it was up to them. Hiromu's eyes burned with a fierce red determination. Back at headquarters, the selection test was about to begin. A group of hopeful candidates stood, ready to prove their worth. Takeda Mayu, one of the three greats, was already confirmed. She warned the others that she would be a strict evaluator. Even Hiromu would receive no special treatment from her. The test was simple. A series of mock battles, winner take all. The other candidates sneered, calling him unranked. They saw this as a chance to teach him his place. With a cheerful grin, Takeda started the match. One of the candidates immediately leaped towards him, but Hiromu dodged with impossible speed and grace. The attacker was sent flying, completely caught off guard. Another candidate stepped in, confident she could handle him, but none of her attacks could even touch him. Her eyes narrowed, her frustration growing with each miss. Another fighter leapt in, aiming for his blind spot. He closed his eyes, his senses expanding outwards. Even without seeing, he effortlessly dodged the attack. They couldn't believe an unranked fighter could move like a master. But Hiromu's eyes remained closed, his focus absolute. He could sense their presence, their movements, their intentions. With the sheathed sword, he parried another blow. His movements were fluid, graceful, and perfectly efficient. One by one, he defeated all his opponents without drawing his blade. The evaluators were stunned by his incredible newfound skill. And just like that, the first group had its winner. The evaluator then turned her attention to the next group. A new battle began, with Miki at the center of the chaos. Her mind was filled with a single, desperate plea. She begged the goddess for the strength to stop Shotaro. Even her own divine partner begged on her behalf. Amaterasu listened, her hands clasped in thought. She agreed, offering the help of her secret protege. This protege could wield multiple divine tools at once. The blindfolded woman was introduced as Hinata. From this day forward, she would serve Miki as her master. But Hinata's true form was that of a small, winged boy. Miki was stunned, unsure what to make of this strange new partner. But the goddess knew their combined hearts would be strong. Miki was ready to prove her strength, her resolve now firm. Hinata agreed, ready to unleash his full, unrestrained power. Her opponents were caught in a web of glowing orange threads. She then unleashed a flash of divine energy upon them. Teada was impressed, knowing she was a high-ranking god. Miki stood victorious, her power now on full display. Hiromu could only watch, amazed by her incredible strength. Now that she had power, she would stop Shotaro herself. But Hiromu would never let her be the one to do it. He was determined to save his brother with his own two hands. He looked at her, his eyes filled with a new, steely resolve. The two of them now stood as equals, their power matched. The third block of the test was a one-on-one battle. Reiji was fired up, refusing to lose to his new rival. He was a prodigy, having never lost to an ordinary hero. In the end, his raw talent and power won him the match. But Honda knew that skill alone was not enough. Honda wondered if Reiji was truly ready for the task force. But Teada appeared, her curiosity piqued by the young heroes. She called out to the two of them, a plan forming in her mind. Hiromu and Reiji stood, ready for their next challenge. She wanted to see more of their incredible hidden strength. She was excited, a sadistic grin on her face. From now on, they would have to team up and fight her. They were confused, unsure why they had to team up. But she was one of the three elites, a true powerhouse. She even gave herself a handicap, a true sign of her confidence. Honda was not amused by her impulsive behavior. This match would decide their fate in the new squad. They both stood, ready for the challenge ahead. With a sharp grin, she declared the match had begun. They were determined to win, their rivalry now a partnership. They both synchronized with their divine partners at once. But Reiji ignored the plan, charging in on his own. Teada met his charge with a smile, unimpressed. She praised his moves, a playful glint in her eyes. But his attack was easily dodged, his recklessness exposed. She sent him flying, telling him to think a little. It was a shame to see such a lack of coordination. But Gayamaru urged him on, telling him to go all out. He gripped his sword, ready to unleash his full power. He attacked with a Thunder Blossom memory realm. But she was too fast, dodging with a playful smile. She told them to work together, to coordinate their attacks. He called out to Reiji, ready to synchronize their moves. But his rival was lost in the heat of the battle. Teada just sighed, disappointed by their lack of teamwork. He knew he couldn't let Baji's wild nature take over. He had to focus on the fight, not on his partner's impulses. He remembered begging the goddess for a new artifact, but Baji had been overjoyed at the thought of staying together. The cat god had rubbed against him, purring with delight, but he was determined to protect everyone with his own strength. The goddess had refused, seeing the potential in his current partner. The cat god was in no way inferior to the other artifacts. She had told him to face his partner more deeply. Only then would he gain the power he truly wished for. But back in the fight, Reiji was still struggling. Teada moved with effortless grace, parrying every blow. She then sent him flying with a single powerful kick. Hiromu called out, trying to get him to coordinate. Reiji's eyes blazed with a new feral intensity. He charged in, his attack aimed at both of them. Hiromu was shocked. This was just like before. His wild, untamed nature was starting to take over again. But Hiromu knew this reckless style would never work. Teada dodged the attack, sending Reiji flying once more. But as she moved to strike, a flash of red appeared. Hiromu had stepped in, blocking her attack with his own. He told him to trust in his divine artifact and leave it to him. He explained that Baji was happy to help, not just fooling around. The cat god just looked at him with its big, sad eyes. If he aligned their hearts, the god would surely respond. Reiji remembered a time when fighting with Baji was just fun. He had never thought about what it truly meant. He had just fought, enjoying the thrill of the battle. But now he understood the true weight of his power. He remembered Baji's innocent voice asking where to play next. He finally understood, his heart now aligned with his partner. With a feral grin, he vowed to play with him again. A powerful golden aura erupted from his body. He was now ready to fight as a true partner. Teada noticed the change, his movements now more refined. He leaped into the air, ready to join her game. A clawless dance of golden light met her attack. She was impressed, a wide grin on her face. Now it was her turn to join the fray. Together they saw a single, perfect opening. They unleashed a thunder blossom refining wind attack. Teada was shocked. The force of the blow was immense. This technique was on par with the three elite. She smiled, no longer needing to hold back her power. She called on her own divine partner, Bayako. Honda tried to stop her, knowing the danger of her power. Her divine partner was one of the legendary four gods. Her fist technique was a force of pure destruction. She prepared to unleash her ultimate attack, Tiger Handbrake. A massive explosion of golden energy rocked the arena. When the dust cleared, Teada stood as the clear winner. The two young heroes were left bruised and utterly exhausted. Teada looked down on them, a smug grin on her face. Gayamaru was confident they would make it into the squad, and with a cheerful smile, Teada announced they had both passed. They were overjoyed, their hard work finally paying off. They shared a fist bump, their rivalry now a true partnership. Asanomi surveyed the damage, but it was easily repaired. Honda then turned to him, a serious look in his eyes. He questioned if Hiromu was truly ready for this fight. His goal to save his brother was driving his incredible growth. But this newfound strength was fragile, not built on experience. Asanomi understood the burden, his mind already made up. He would not let this promising young hero wither away. Back in the infirmary, Makoto was tending to their wounds. He placed healing talismans on their backs, easing their pain. They were both in awe of Takeda's incredible, overwhelming power. Makoto was worried, asking if they were scared of the coming battles, especially Hiromu, who had been unranked until just recently. But Hiromu wasn't scared, he was excited for the chance. Reiji was surprised, he still hadn't given up on saving him. Mikoto could only offer his prayers for their safety. He then offered to treat them to a meal, but Hiromu had to decline. Asanomi had called for him. Reiji then stepped in, offering to treat him instead. He was celebrating his own place on the new squad. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure was watching them from the shadows. He noted their close, friendly relationship. A cruel smile spread across his face, a new plan forming. Asanomi led him to a strange, unfamiliar location. He unlocked the door, telling him to relax for a while. He was shocked to find himself at Asanomi's private home. He cautiously stepped inside, unsure what to expect. To his surprise, Honda-jin was already there. Asanomi was in the kitchen, casually preparing a meal. He sat at the table, completely baffled by the situation. Honda told him to relax, it was just a celebration. It was a party to celebrate their recent victory. Hiromu was touched, he had never experienced this before. Honda sighed. That sounded just like his old friend. He had always rushed home, eager to see his little brother. Asanomi brought out a steaming pot of delicious food. This was a special occasion, a celebration of their teamwork. He had even made rabbit-shaped rice cakes for the occasion. After the meal, they all expressed their gratitude. But Hiromu knew the real battle was still to come. He stood to leave, ready to continue his training. But Asanomi stopped him, his expression suddenly serious. He had something important to say, and he needed him to listen. From this day forward, Asanomi would take him as his disciple. Hiromu stood ready to accept his new role. The great hero's eyes were filled with a grim determination. He would teach him the fundamentals he was currently lacking. Honda-jin also offered to take him under his wing. He would teach him the tactics needed to survive the battles ahead. Hiromu was honored, but also a little suspicious. He wondered if this was all a trick to stop him. Asanomi just smiled, a silent confirmation of his fears. But there was more to it than just that. Asanomi explains that to get stronger quickly. Hiromu bows, placing himself in their care. But outside, Gayamaru watches with suspicion. He believes he sees right through their plan. And Takeda from intelligence agrees, vowing to protect Hiromu's resolve. Gayamaru considers intervening, but realizes more allies might be for the best. He knows it's what Shotaro would have wanted. He looks to the moon, asking his former master to wait just a little longer. Meanwhile, back at headquarters, Makoto sighs. He's drowning in paperwork for the new task force, the true final boss of any organization. He wonders why Amaterasu gave him a divine tool when he's not even a fighter. He recalls her cryptic words about the sign of hardship upon him. She had given him a bracelet, a divine artifact for protection. He stands before a quiet office door, convinced that in this safe place he'll never need it. He opens the door ready to get back to work. But he's met by a familiar, unwelcome face. His paperwork goes flying in his shock. He stammers, asking who the intruder is. Takeda grabs him from behind, telling him to keep quiet. He had his eyes on Makoto for a while now. He grabbed her, ready to take her to the cult's hideout. But a sudden flash of light stopped him in his tracks. He was thrown back by a powerful, unseen force. The man was sent flying, his plan completely foiled. A new figure appeared, its voice cold and menacing. It was Mickey's divine partner, a powerful kitsune god. The man was trapped, his escape route completely cut off. A single beam of light shot through the barrier. Takeda appeared, alerted by the sudden commotion. Mickey explains that after the shrine incident, she's laid a network of divine threads to detect any threat. And across the city, that very network is triggered. The traitor, Takeda, knows he has to make a quick escape. He prepares a dark orb, ready to open a gate to his allies. But thanks to Mickey's warning, Hiromu is already there to stop him. Takeda is stunned by his impossible speed. He tries to fight back, but his strike is easily deflected. Hiromu's eyes burn with rage, vowing he won't get away. The traitor smirks, recognizing the brother of Futsunushi's vessel. Hiromu grits his teeth, demanding to know where Shitaro is. He charges forward, ready to force an answer. Takeda sighs, annoyed he has to reveal his true power. He unleashes a vengeful spirit summoning technique, and with a smug grin, he orders them to hold Hiromu off. Gayamaru recognizes the man as a powerful yin-yang master, but Mickey's new partner, Hinata, declares this is a piece of cake. She unleashes a purifying technique, the Sacred Lotus. Takeda can only watch as his spirits are obliterated. Hiromu thanks Mickey for the timely backup. The traitor is in disbelief, his plan falling apart, but he just smirks, deciding it's time to get serious. He unleashes a powerful 1,000 ranks barrier. Mickey knows she can't break through a defense like this. Takeda mocks them, confident in his escape. Hinata explains that yin-yang masters are resistant to their power, but Gayamaru's voice cuts in, saying it's not a problem. He tells Hiromu to synchronize with him, and our boy agrees. Takeda drops his escape tool, already planning his victory speech, but he's suddenly struck down from behind. The traitor can only watch as the blade cuts through his barrier. Gayamaru declares that no evil can stand against its power. Takeda can't understand how it's possible. As Hiromu pins him to the ground, his defense shattered. The exorcising blade is simply on another level. With the traitor captured, the team begins their interrogation, but his flimsy excuses aren't fooling anyone. Honda demands he stop playing games and talk. Makoto recalls the traitor mentioning the fallen god's cult, but Takeda remains defiant, refusing to speak. So Mickey decides it's time for a more direct approach. She prepares to use her thread of revelation technique, peering directly into the traitor's mind. She learns of a growing cult and their base of operations. Asanomi notes there were other, less subtle ways to get the information. Hiromu asks the question on everyone's mind: why? The traitor explains that for some, chaos is freedom, a world where those who live in the shadows can thrive, though he's quick to deny being one of them himself. Honda knows they have to move fast. Futsunushi was gathering followers, his cult growing stronger. Hiromu wondered if his brother was at their new target, but Mickey couldn't be sure. The cult was being cautious. Hiromu suspected Futsunushi was focusing on the towns. Either way, they would depart at dawn to face him. Hiromu and Gayamaru stood, ready for the coming battle. The new squad stood before the Izumo Taisha Fallen Tower. This was the place where it all began, and where it would all end.